All right, Sefer Yehoshua, perek Yadalad. It's one of the shorter prokim in the Sefer. Try to make some headway over here. Finish the whole thing in one shot. Pasuk says, perek opens up, Ve'elu asher nachlu b'nei Yisrael b'eretz Canaan. These are the lands that the Jews inherited in the land of Canaan in Israel. Asher nichlu oisam Elazar hakoyin. It was distributed to them by Elazar HaKohen as an inheritance. Yeshua ben Nun and Yeshua. V'roishi avos hamatos l'bnei Yisrael, and the heads of the tribes for the Jews. All right. The next pasuk says, "Begordel nachlasam." There was a type of lottery with the inheritance that they would receive. Kasher siva Hashem b'yad Moshe, like Hashem commanded in the hand of Moshe. L'teishus hamatos v'chatzi hamat, for 9.5 of the tribes. Okay. Next pasuk says, Ki nosan Moshe nachla shnei hamatos v'chotzi hamata me'iver liyardim, because Moshe gave his inheritance to 2.5 of the tribes on the other side of the Jordan River. V'lelavim lo nosan nachla b'toichem. And for the Levium, they weren't given any sort of inheritance, as we discussed in the previous parak, numerous reasons why that is so, why the tribe of Levi didn't receive any land. Kihayu b'nei Yosef shnei matos. The children of Yosef, there were 2 tribes, Menashe and Ephraim. Menashe and Ephraim, as we're learning in this week's parsha, in Parshas Vayechi, regarding the brachas. V'lo yinasnu chelik u'laviyim ba'aretz ki im odim lasheves u'migreshehem lemekneim u'lekinyonim. And there was no portion that was given to the tribe of Levi in the land except for these cities. Lasheves. Lasheves means for dwelling. Migreshehem. What's migreshehem? Lemikneim is for their cattle, ulekinyonim, and it's literally for their acquisitions. What does this mean? The Metzudas Sion over here explains migreshehem, heim habinyonim hasmuchim laha'ir. These are referring to buildings that are next to the city. M'chutz l'chom, outside of the wall of the city. Ukilu nigreshu mimeno. It's as if it was driven away from them. L'mikneim. What does that mean? Heim behemos gasos, for the big animals. L'kinyonim heim behemos takos, for the small animals. So now let's go back to the pasuk. You're only given cities to dwell. U'migreshehem. We just explained that the cities are the buildings, right outside the city. L'mikneim, these are the areas for the small animals, for the large animals. L'kinyonim, this is for the small animals. That's how the Metzudos learns this pasuk. Pasuk K says, "Kasher siva Adonai es Moshe kinasu b'nei Yisrael v'yachloiku esar." It's just like Hashem commanded Moshe. That's what the Jews did, and they divided the land. Starts with this Metzilas Hanavim, Rabbi Yamin Eisenberger from Brooklyn. He builds off of a Metzudas over here. Kasher siva Hashem. Let's actually see that Metzudas David inside first. Kasher siva Hashem. Like Hashem commanded, Shaloi laseis nachlo lavim, not to give any land to the Levium as an inheritance. V'yachloiku, when they divided, benehem among them. Cholkuv lo nasim and Levim, they didn't give it to the Levium. Mesilas HaNavim points out something very interesting based on this Metzudas that we just saw. V'nira, shebeshivchon shel Yisrael dibur arkasav. The pasuk over here is praising the Jewish nation. Even though it's hard to see this in the words of the pasuk, nevertheless, the pasuk is in fact praising the Jews over here. Shlo haitza lahem bazeh shum hana atzmiyus v'simcha. They had no pleasure at all and happiness. Because what's happening over here psychologically? Let's psychoanalyze, let's give a little analysis to what's occurring over here. They got no pleasure. They got no pleasure that they got more. They got more land at the expense of Levi because Levi got less land, or zero land because Levi got zero land. Elakol ikoram lo asu kein rak asher siva Hashem es Moshe. They only did this and distributed in the land this way because this is what Hashem commanded Moshe. Bekavana zachu ubrura lakayim mitzvahs Hashem bli shum paniya v'negia atzamas. With explicit intention over here, with a clear mindset, just to fulfill the mitzvah of Hashem, not to have any personal gain in any way, shape, or form. They weren't biased from this. See from over here the incredible concept and idea of doing something just because Hashem says. Don't get happiness because you're benefiting. Don't be upset because you're not benefiting. No. Hashem says to do something, you do it. That's the idea over here. The art scroll, the blue one, explains that the division of the land was done divinely. There were lots. The Urim and Tumim was consulted. That's the Kohen Gadol's, the breastplate. So it proved to everyone that Hashem himself chose the locations where everyone would be. That's the beginning of this perek. That's how it starts out. Perek continues and really ends with another section within this. Straight to Pasuk Vav here. Vayikshu b'nei Yehuda. Yeah, here's what's happening over here. The people of Yehuda approached El Yeshua. They approached Yeshua by Gilgal in a place called Gilgal. Vayomer, I love. Kalev ben Yefuna Hakenizi. So Kalev, the son of Yefuna, Hakenizi. I have to see the significance. What's this Kenizi business? The Kenizite. It's the location. Kalev was their spokesman. And Kalev said, Ata yadata, you know, as a davar azer shedibar Hashem Moshe. Remember, he's talking to Yeshua. Kalev saying, Ata yadata is a davar azer, you know this matter. Asher dibar Hashem Moshe, that Hashem spoke to Moshe. Isha Elokim, who is a godly man, that's Moshe. Alo doisei, regarding me. Valo dosechem, regarding you, Bekadesh Barnea, in the place called Kadesh Barnea. Compound word. Next, Pasuk, Bein Arba'im Shana Noichi. 40 years old. I was 40 years old, B'shaloich Moshe, Eved Hashem, Oisi, Mekadesh Barnea L'Ragil Asaretz. I was 40 years old when Moshe sent me, Moshe, who's a servant of Hashem, as we discussed in the past, from Kadesh Barnea to spy out the land of Israel. He's giving a flashback report of what happened to him in the past. And I returned the report as it was in my heart. What was in my heart, that's how I returned it. It was a sincere report. There's a lot of discussion on this word, in my heart. Before we do that, let's take a look over here at the Mitzudas. Mitzudas, it looks like, is going to continue on this next page over here. Vayikshu b'nei Yehuda la'azur l'kalev b'she'elas bakashasai. The people of Yehuda came close to assist Kalev in asking for the following request that Kalev is presenting over here, and that we will see. The Abarbanel is of the opinion that the people of Yehuda approached. This was showing respect for their distinguished leader of the tribe, Kalev. Ma'am Loewy says that Kalev came with an entourage in order to honor Yehoshua. So there's multiple explanations exactly why they went with Kalev, why they went with him. The Gemara in Sota on Yud Aleph relates that after the death of Kalev's father, so his mother married someone by the name of Kenaz. Kalev was called, uh, like we just saw in the pasuk, Hakenizi, based on his new father's name, stepfather, in honor of his stepfather. The pasuk relates that Kalev told Moshe, "You know what's going on, ala doisi v'ala desecha. You know this matter that Hashem spoke to Moshe regarding me and you." Kalev just reminded Yehoshua that they were the only ones of the generation over the age of 20 that were allowed to enter into Israel, because they stood up to the spies' negative report and urged the people to have faith. And because of this courageous act, Moshe promised Hebron to Kalev. That's what the Abarbanel explains. That's a deeper idea behind this pasuk. What's the story with I returned the report like it was with my heart? Im Lavavi. There's multiple explanations commenting on this. The heart, a very special place. The Radak comments, Nira, Ki kasher haya imohim ad shebo el hamachana. Haya maskim imohim b'devarim kedei shelo yaharguhu. V'kasher bo el hamachana heishiv davar emes kasher im levavo. When he was with the camp, he was with, Kalev was with the spies until he came to the camp. He agreed to the spies externally before he reached the Jewish camps that they wouldn't kill him. But once he reached the camp, he said what he really believed, what was in his heart, the accurate reporting. That's what it means. I said what was in my heart. Radak continues and quotes the Medrash, the Gemara in Sota Lamed Hey, which Rashi made famous in Parsha Shlach, by saying he basically quieted everyone in front of the spies, and they thought that he was going to also say something negative. And then once he had the microphone, so to say, once he had the stage, he said the true report, and then everyone listened. They didn't even realize what was coming. They thought the opposite, what was coming, a negative report, and he was going to slander. But it was actually positive. He said what was in his heart. Kliyakar actually delves into this and explains, even though externally, in the onset, he showed that he was going to go with the negative reports, nevertheless, that's not the information that he presented. And it was rewarded. Kalev continues and says, V'achai, v'achai. And he says, and my brother, Asher Alu Imi, that went with me. Imisem Eslevam, they melted the hearts of the nation. V'anochi malesi achere Hashem Elokai. And I fulfilled after the will of Hashem, my God. Mitzudas David explains, Hamaraglim kulim himisu leva'am. The spies with their negative reports, they melted the hearts of the Jewish people when they came back with their report. So it means that it's of himisum. My brothers who were with me, v'achai, my brothers who went up with me, They melted the heart of the nation with their negative reports. But me, I went after the will of Hashem, and I relayed the proper report. What was actually happening on the floor. So now the pasuk continues and says, remember, this is all Kalev talking to Yehoshua. And Kalev is reminding Yehoshua v'yashaba Moshe b'yoymahu lemor. Moshe made a shvua, made an oath, a swear on that day, saying, Im lo haaretz, for sure, haaretz, the land, asher darcha, that you step on, raglecha, with your feet, ba, l'cha tiyeh, it will be yours. L'nachla, as an inheritance, u'lebanecha ad olam, and for your children forever. Ki malisa achre Hashem Eloika, because you fulfilled after that which Hashem, my God, wanted. This is Moshe making the swear back, saying, you will get the land, you will be successful, be victorious. The Mitsudos, David over here. In this pasuk comments, Hu inyan lashon shavua. This is a matter of a swear, of an oath. Ki ilu amar, im lo yiyeh hadavar hazeh azi yeh unshoy kach v'kach, v'gazim v'lo amar. If this matter won't happen, the punishment will be such and such a thing, and he was exaggerating. Moshe was making a swear, saying this will for sure happen. If not, there's going to be a major punishment that will result. This will happen. Wherever you step will be yours at Chevron. Like we said above, this is talking about Chevron. He's going to get Chevron. Big city, Chevron. Big place. So it continues on the next page. He himself went to Chevron. This is a major connection between Kalev and Chevron. Chevron we know is a special place, Maras HaMachpelah. Avos being buried there, Chayesara, it's a big Parshas Chayesara, they all go there. I was actually Zocher to be there one year. Very special. A lot of significance also with Kalev and Chevron. The Radak comments over here. Yeah. Radak comments. And also says, Zohi Chevron, this is Chevron that we're talking about. Shemer the pasuk says, V'yavo ad Chevron. V'lo amar v'yavo. It says that he came to Chevron. It doesn't say that they came. Lefi shehamaraglim ha'achirim hayu yidim lavoi sham. The other spies were afraid to go there to Chevron. Because who was in Chevron? Mepnei Hanakim, there were giants there. Kimo Shamar, like the pasuk says, Bisham, Achiman, V'goimer, etc. There were giants there. Klemer afal pi shehayesham ilu hanakim hagedolim, bo sham kalev. Meaning, even though there were giants there, great warriors, Kalev wasn't afraid and he went there. Befikach, Amar loy Moshe shitelo Chevron lenachal. And therefore Moshe says as a reward, you will get Chevron. Pasuk Yud continues. It's all one conversation over here that Kalev's having. A little bit of a monologue over here. Bata. And now, Hine Hichya Hashem Oisi. Hashem has kept me alive. He let me live. Kasher Dibar Zeh Arbaim V'chamesh Shona Ma'az. Dibar Hashem Es Adavar Hazeh Al Moshe Asher Haluch Yisrael B'Midbar. Hashem has kept me alive. Like this was spoken about 45 years before the time that Hashem spoke this matter to Moshe, who went with the Jews throughout the desert. In other words, this is an old conversation. This is from 45 years ago already. That's why today I am 85 years old. Because Kalev was 40 when he was a spy. This conversation happened 45 years ago between Moshe and Hashem. Therefore, 40 plus 45 equals 85, saying he's 85. Whenever you see numbers, you have to ask, why do we need to know his age? Number one. Number two, we already kind of knew this from the conversation. Just do a little bit of math. It was 40, the conversation happened 45 years ago. It's basic math. 40 and 45 is 85. Let's finish the statement that he says. Va'ata. Oh, sorry. Yud Aleph. Oideni hayoim chazak. I'm still strong today. Kasher b'yoim shaloyach oisi Moshe kekoich yazu kekoichi ata l'molchama v'lasis v'lavo. I'm still strong today, like on the day that Moshe sent me 45 years ago. Kekoichi az, like my strength was then, ukekoichi ata, and my strength is now. L'molchama v'lasis v'lavo, for war, to go and to come. That's why the pasuk is telling us his age. That's why Kalev is mentioning his age. Even though I'm 85, I'm still very strong, which is miraculous indeed. Very few 85-year-olds are as strong as they were when they were 40. 40 is like the peak of a person's strength. 30, 40, that's really when you're strongest. He said, I still got it. Remember, my grandfather used to tell me when he was 99, age is just a number. You know? As we learned previously in the Sefer, some people, they age earlier and they get more tired and sick when they're younger. Other people, when they're older, they're just like they're young. Depends on the person. But this is pretty miraculous that he's saying at the age of 85, he was able to move like when he was younger. Pretty miraculous indeed. The Mitsudas, Mitsudas David and Yud Aleph says, Odeno hayoim chazak, I'm still strong. Lefisha ba lishol es chevron. This is all a setup. Kalev is about to request. He says, I want chevron. Chashash pein Yoshev Yehoshua lemor halo zakanta v'tash koichecha. Kalev was thus concerned, rightfully so. Chashash, he was concerned, pain Yoshev Yehoshua, perhaps Yehoshua would respond to him and answer him lamor, saying, "O zakanta v'tash kochecha, you are very old and weak in your strength. Ve'ich tichvosh es Chevron, how are you going to conquer Chevron? L'za amar adenu chazik as." To that, Kalev said, no, I'm very strong like I was then. In other words, Kalev already answered the question and the concern before it could be addressed or asked. He was saying, I could wage war. Next Mitsudo says, I could be involved with the tactics. I could do it. That's what he was saying over here. That's what Kalev was saying. I could go for it. I'm definitely strong enough to do this. I can do this. That's what Kalev was saying. Similarly, the Barbanel says this explanation as well. Kalev wasn't being arrogant over here. He wasn't trying to express pride. Kalev wanted to assure Yeshua that he didn't need to worry about his ability to conquer Hebron. Even though he was old, Kalev had bitachon, he had belief in Hashem, that Hashem would be with him now, just like Hashem was with him in the past, and enable him to win his inheritance in the battle. That's how the Barbanel explains this. The Talmud Lamed Sefer points out that we find many great leaders and righteous people, even though they were very old, were able to accomplish an incredible amount. We see that the Chafetz Chaim traveled very far, and it was difficult to travel 100 years ago. And he spoke before the Polish parliament when he was well in his 80s in order to stop the drafting of the yeshiva students. Gemara and Baba Basra on Kuf Mem Gimel discusses, does it matter what a person's age is? No, it's a quality. We discussed this also in the past in the Parsha, this idea. So you see, you could do a lot when it comes to age. That's an important lesson that we could learn over here. There's another idea behind this pasuk that he was mentioning his age. This idea he was mentioning his age. He's saying, "I'm still strong, so strong." The Ber Moshe explains that this is referring to strength against his evil inclination, his Yetzer Hara. He was still strong. He didn't submit to his temporary desires and lusts, his impulses. The next pasuk continues and says, "Va'ata." So this is all a build-up that Kalev is saying for this final end of his statement, his monologue. Va'ata, and right now, Tinali esahara, say, give me this mountain. Asher dibar Hashem bayomahu, that Hashem spoke at that time. Ki ata shamato, because you heard. Bayomahu, on that time. Ki anokim sham, there were giants over there. Va'orim gedolos betsudos, and there were very big cities that were fortified. Ulai Hashem oisi. Maybe Hashem will be oisi. We're going to see means with me. Show you right now. Mitsuda says, oisi means imi. Maybe Hashem will be with me over here. V'hoirashtim kasher diber Hashem. And I will drive them out like Hashem commanded me. In other words, Kalev is saying, let me get Hebron over here. That's what he's saying. Give me that mountain. Give me that mountain. That's what he's saying. Yeah, that's basically the end of what Kalev is saying over here. That's the end of his statement over here. It's very interesting because we know that Kalev is referring to Hebron. So the question becomes, why does he say, give me this mountain? Why does he refer to Hebron as this mountain? This terminology shows, the intention of this terminology is to indicate that the whole desire that Kalev had for the city from Hebron was just motivated to fulfill Hashem's request and Hashem's desire, his promise. Hebron was not known as a good location geographically from a real estate perspective. It wasn't known as a fertile land. According to the Peiros Yosef, it was one of the four locations which Chazal speak negative about. Hebron had massive fortified cities where giants lived, warriors. But in the eyes and the viewpoint of Kalev, Hebron was very precious. Why? For one reason, because Hashem promised him that land. The city of Hebron always had a special significance for Jewish people throughout the ages, even when it was under foreign dominion. Well, it's a whole long story over here in the Lumot Lamed, a miraculous event that happened about the city of Hebron. The 14th day of Tevis, that the Pasha in charge of Hebron issued a bad decree against the Jews. They were given 3 days and they had to raise 50,000 dinars, a very large sum of money. And if they failed to do so, the Jewish community would be killed and every man and woman and child would be in prison. The Jewish community responded by acting in the same way as the Jews of Shushan did. They declared a 3-day fast, had all the Jews gather in shuls to pray and recite Tehillim. And they also sent a messenger to Maras HaMachpelah to insert a written request to the Yesheni Hebron, the old people, the patriarchs and matriarchs who slept in Hebron. As the 3rd day approached, the Pasha sent his soldiers to station themselves, fully armed, outside the gates of the Jewish quarter in Hebron. He went to sleeping smiling, and he was satisfied that he won a victory over the Jewish population who he despised. But he was not going to sleep peacefully that night. During the night, The Pasha was awakened by a loud noise. He opened his eyes and he saw there were three tall old men with long white beards staring with anger at him. And he said, "Bring us 50,000 dinars immediately, or we will kill you on the spot." He was petrified, and he ran in his pajamas to his treasure room, and he withdrew the sack containing 50,000 dinars. And he gave it to the three old men, who immediately disappeared. He then awoke in the morning, and he was disturbed by the frightening dream that he had the night before. In the morning, the Jews they gathered another time in the shul to pray and say Tehillim. They heard a loud bang at the gate. The Shamish went to investigate, and he was astonished. He noticed a window that seemed to be open at the bottom of the gate. A hand reached through the window and dropped a bundle at his feet. Shamish opened the bundle into a shock and amazement, found that it contained the exact amount of money needed to appease the Pasha and save the lives of the Jewish community of Hebron. When the Pasha's troops arrived, they were ready to round up the Jews for imprisonment. They were surprised to hear that the request of the 50,000 dinars would indeed be given to the Pasha. Pasha was informed of this new and unexpected development when he arrived in the Jewish quarter and was handed the sack of the dinars. He looked like he was going to faint. He recognized the sack, the one that he was forced to give the three old men in his so-called dream, which turned out not to be a dream after all. Pasha had no doubt that the Jews of Hebron were protected by the patriarchs buried within Marasa Machpelah, and for the rest of his life he never dared to harass a Jewish soul. So the day of the 14th of Tevis was celebrated for the Jewish community over there, the Purim of the window, the time for thanking Hashem for the miraculous rescue of his people. What an incredible story. See, Hebron has a tremendous amount of significance. Next pasuk continues. We only have three more psukim in this perek. Pasuk says, "V'yivarchehu Yehoshua." Yehoshua blessed him. V'yitin es Hebron l'Kalev ben Yefula nachla. And he gave Hebron to Kalev, the son of Yefuna, as a inheritance. So here you see the pasuk clearly says Hebron. Yeshua gave him Hebron. That's what we see. You got it at the end. You got Hebron. The Metzudas David just clarifies, crystallizes. V'yivarchehu, Yeshua gave him a blessing. Sheyatzliach b'hilach mobam. That Kalev would have success when he would wage war against Hebron. He gave Hebron Sode Ha'ir v'chatzreha, the field of the city and its courtyards. Aval Ha'ir atzma ha'seir miklat. But the city itself did not belong to Kalev. It's the city of refuge for the tribe of Levi. V'hi u'megarshea hayu lekohanim k'mashikos l'matus. For the Kohanim, it was a city of refuge. If someone would accidentally murder someone, they would run away there. So when we say that Kalev, the Hebron was given to Kalev, we have to just crystallize and clarify that's only referring to the field and the courtyards, not the city proper. It's an important nuance that could easily be overlooked if you're just learning the psukim without the proper commentary to it. Next pasuk says, Al kain haisa Hebron l'Kalev ben Yefuna hakenizi l'nachal ad hayom hazeh. Therefore, Hebron belongs to Kalev, the son of Yefuna. The Kenizi, like we said above, is an inheritance until this day. Yan Hashem milei achrei Hashem Elokei Yisrael, because he fulfilled the will after Hashem, the God of the Jews. So Hebron belongs to Kalev. That's what we see from this over here. Just like to go to a point that I missed over here. Back on Pasuk Yud Beis. Kalev, he came along and he said, back on Pasuk Yud Beis, V'ata tena li es ha'har, give me this mountain, Shedibar Hashem b'yoyim hahu, that Hashem spoke on that day. Ki ata shemata b'yoyim hahu, ki anakim sham, there are giants there, v'em gadolim b'suros. And there are great cities that are fortified. Ulai. Hashem oisi v'harashtim kasher dibar Hashem. Perhaps, maybe Hashem will be with me and help me drive him out. Maybe Hashem will be with me. Furthermore, we find that the city of Hebron was already conquered by Yeshua in a previous battle. In Yud, Lamed Vav, Yud Beis, Yud. Why did Kalev express doubt over here? Kalev wasn't discussing the actual city itself, as we discussed. Couldn't have been given to him because it was one of the Iri Miklats, the city of refuge, which couldn't be owned privately. It wasn't residential real estate, as discussed in Yeshua and Chaf, Zayin. Kalev was asking for those other areas of the city, like we learned. And these he conquered, and this was the territory he received. I think there's what to discuss on this word ulai. There's what to look into more about this terminology that's being used over here. Shua gave him a bracha, we just learned. Bracha that he should have success. Another explanation is that he expressed that Kalev should avoid an ayin hara, this evil eye. So he blessed him. Long life, Kli Yakar explains, in order to prevent him from being harmed by the evil eye. This idea over here. Also, next perek continues. It says, "V'shem Chevron lifnim." The name of Chevron was formerly called Kriyas Arba. Ha'adam hagadol ba'anakim hu, the great person of the giants. V'ha'aretz shakta mimilchama, and the land became quiet from war. It remained quiet from war. That's how this perek ends. It was a time of calm, time of quiet. The Mitsuda's comments over here. And that's the Malbim. Mitsuda's Kriyas Arba. Kriyas Ish. Shahaya Shema Arba. Person he had the name 4. Hayaldim Gadol Banakim, great person among the giants, Rosalomer Gam Lamul Anakim Hayanechshav Gadol Gavakom. Even among the giants he was considered big and great. An interesting ending to this perek. The land was quiet, it was silent. Radak says, Kriyas Arba hu shem anak vuadim gadol banakim, like we just saw Shaktim al ki has atzlu b'nei Yisrael l'hoyrish hanesharim. What does it mean the land was quiet? The Jews were lax, they were lazy to conquer the rest of the land. Radak learns that this is a bad thing for the Jews. Rashi has a similar comment that he makes. First of all, Rashi comments, offers a different explanation why it's called Kiryas Arba. Davar Acher, Al Shem Ha'av V'Shlosh Banim. One father, 3 children. 3 plus 1 is 4. City of 4. Rashi says it was quiet. Mutzav L'inyan of Rishon. This goes back on the first matter. La'acher Sheva Shekav Shezavaveh and There's no more wars. They started dividing the land. Another explanation is that, according to Midrash, Pasuk refers to Avram and the respects that were shown by the inhabitants of Hebron when he came to bury his wife Sarah. The big man of the giants was Avram, the greatest of the great. He helped him with the burial spot, etc. And no good deed is ignored, no matter how trivial it may seem, and no matter how evil the person who does it. Meaning it was because the giants and the other inhabitants of Hebron showed him honor when he needed a burial plot for Sarah. Hashem therefore postponed the inevitable war against Hebron and kept the Jews in the wilderness for 40 years. A deep explanation there. Anyways, so this is basically the pasuk. Definitely what to learn from this pasuk. Okay, the next perek. This is the perek. Excuse me, I meant to say the next perek is very long, 63 psukim. So we'll see what we can do there.